I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 109 of the Future Template Parent Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Carolyn Solo, PhD, LICSW, EMDR consultant, business coach, intensive therapist, mom of 3 daughters. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Today I want to talk about filling the time in your intensive. I tell everyone, let's do that 3-day, 15-hour intensive. You're going to get amazing results. You're going to get so far with your clients. You're going to get through at least 6 months of material in 1 week in 15 hours. Great. Okay. That sounds amazing. It is. I promise you, it is. What do I actually do to make that happen? Okay. There's the question, right? And people worry they're just going to be sitting there, not sure what to do, watching the clock, thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get to 4 p.m. or whatever? I sold this client the idea of 15 hours and what that was going to do for them. So now what the heck do I do? We're so acclimated to a 50-minute session, which I've said many times before, I will say many times again, isn't really a clinically relevant amount of time. It's just an easy way to track time hour by hour. And that's what insurance companies came up with. But we're so acclimated to that that anything else can feel sort of frightening and certainly overwhelming. What do I do with that time? I do want you to know that it is very rare in my experience and the experience of other therapists I know and have coached that you're going to be wondering what to do and you're going to be staring at the clock thinking, get me out of here. I really promise that the time, if you're prepared to offer this and you know what you're doing, the time is going to go so fast and you'll be really into it. It's not that it isn't tiring. It is tiring, but you definitely get into that flow state, which doesn't get interrupted because you're not seeing 6 clients that day. But the time goes fast and you really get into it and you'll start to wonder, how did I work another way? But a roadmap, a treatment plan, a structure will help you feel so much more ready. And this is why I focus on this a lot in my group coaching program and my individual. I give you everything you need to feel completely confident in how to use the time effectively and in a way that's going to deliver a transformational and efficient experience to your client. And efficiency is certainly not my priority as a therapist, really, but I do believe that this use of time is actually much more, you get a much better result in the amount of time that you're spending, right? And so there is some efficiency in that, along with the amount of money you're spending to only do the 15 hours, albeit at a higher rate than you would spend on a year of therapy. Like there's an economic efficiency argument there as well, but certainly efficiency is not my priority as a therapist in that regard. We go as slow as we need to, but it is great to have time that allows us to feel like we can go slow and feel like we can go deep without rushing, because, even though efficiency is not how we like to think of therapy, that's certainly how insurance companies would like us to think about it. They would like us to get clients in and out in 12 sessions and solve their depression. I think you're going to get a lot further with someone in 15 hours of an EMDR intensive than you would certainly in 15 sessions of talk therapy and also 15 sessions of hourly EMDR. But insurance companies care about efficiency, yet they're not going to necessarily be supporting therapeutic modalities that look different, that may be efficient but look different than the 50-minute hour. But yeah, so you're going to get from my programs and my September cohort of the EMDR Intensive, 12-week intensive, is just on the horizon once we finish summer. But you're going to get in that program everything you need to feel totally confident in using the time well and in a way that really gets clients incredible outcomes. And you know what? Your first intensive is probably going to feel a little clunky, okay? Although mostly clunky to you, I would guess. I doubt your clients feel that way. Just remember when you first learned EMDR at all and you first started offering it, it probably felt a little odd. It felt strange to introduce it to your clients. It felt like you had to keep checking your notes to make sure you were following the protocol and asking the questions in the right order. And now I doubt you're looking at the assessment like handout that you got from your EMDR basic training every single time to make sure you ask the right questions. You probably freewheel it a little bit more. You probably you really deeply understand the purpose of the protocol and why it's structured the way it's structured. And that kind of allows you to freewheel it a little bit. It's really in your bones, right? This will happen with intensives also. And look, if you make a mistake, and that could mean a lot of things. If you ask the wrong question, if you move a little bit too fast, if you, I don't know, yawn, right? You'll figure it out. You'll make amends, and you have time. Again, that's the beautiful thing about an intensive is you have the luxury of time. If something goes a little wonky, you can attune to that person. You're there with them. You can sit with them and really repair and move forward. So that's a great thing about having time. Yeah, and I'm thinking back on my first intensive. It felt awkward. Part of it was I didn't really have a structure. I just decided I'm going to do 3 hours over 3 days. Hooray! Someone I knew was doing that. Okay, let's try that. I was using the client workbook at this point, but it was the one that was from Cambria Evans's program, Zero Disturbance, not the one that I wrote that I used, but I still was using a workbook, and that was helpful, which is certainly what got me to make my own version, which has pieces that are very similar to Cambria Evans's stuff, but also pieces that are my own. I didn't really know much about RTEP yet. I did, which is what I used to structure my intensives, but I wasn't using it very much. And I definitely thought, okay, 3 hours, we'll just keep going target to target 3 days. And I found it to be daunting. Something I worried about a lot at the beginning was clients being bored, which is kind of fascinating to me. Like clients sitting in the intensive and being bored and feeling like it was going to be so long and boring. Certainly clients get tired, and not every client either. Some find the process energizing and cathartic and all sorts of things. But certainly clients get tired. That makes sense. But bored, not usually. I think there's a bit of projection there. I think I was worried about maybe not being bored, but about not being able to stay grounded and focused for that long. And I think I was a little worried about, am I even doing anything? Because I think this was earlier in my EMDR career where I still sometimes had that little voice of but I'm just sitting here saying, go with that or notice that, which of course, even if that is all we say, which it's not, we're doing so much more than that. So all that to say, but I think that was a projection on my part, right? So what do I offer you to help you feel like you have a structure, a treatment plan, and a way forward until you know how to actually create an intensive that is really transformative? Well, first of all, we have the workbook that is a freebie. There's a link in my show notes. You can download my 22-page client workbook, which helps them prepare for the intensive and helps you prepare for the intensive with a bunch of assessments and questionnaires that are really great for helping them understand things like resourcing. They give a developmental history and an attachment history that's going to be very informative for you. They learn about parts. They start to create some resources that they're going to use in the intensive. And there's some pages on between intensive days in the workbook and then what to do after the intensive. And so it's a very comprehensive structure that's sort of built into the workbook. And like I said, if the clients complete the pre-intensive part, which most of them do, sometimes people can find it a little overwhelming at times. And then I say, hey, look, I always say that in the intake. Look, if you're feeling overwhelmed by any of this, you can take a break. You can just do as much as you can. But a lot of people do the whole thing. They're coming in very, very primed for the work. So that's very helpful. And they are sort of set to go. They know where they want to go. They have a good sense of what their goals are because the workbook kind of guides them through all that. And then you have it, right? I ask clients to send me the workbook no less than 24 hours before the intensive starts so I can review it. I think it also helps them feel really ready to work, which is immensely helpful in terms of how the time goes, because they're focused as well. Using the recent traumatic episode protocol, RTEP, I think is incredibly helpful. It's what I use in all of my intensives. And it deals with, one, I think the definition of recent, I think, can trip people up, because they're like, well, this isn't recent trauma this person's dealing with. This was a childhood trauma. Well, a lot of the recent event protocols conceptualize recent as, the thing is still affecting you in the present. And also sometimes people will use the term episode instead of event to indicate that the impact of this is throughout the lifespan. So, obviously it's a very easy case to make that a sexual assault that happened when someone was a teenager is still affecting them at age 50, right? So it's recent because it's still impacting them in the present. So just so you know that it can be, you can think of recent in that way. And RTEP's format does account for that. So you can use that protocol, even if it isn't something that happened within the past 2 years or something. So I use it for every single intensive. That's the structure that I use. And I teach you how to use that in my group programs and my one-to-one coaching. I have earlier podcast episodes all about RTEP. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, the resources in the workbook, the resourcing sections kind of set you up to do the phase 2 in like that part of phase 2 in your office with the person. I sort of help guide them through in the workbook, like creating resources that are relevant to the theme of the intensive. So you can just sort of go with that. You don't go with that. You don't have to spend time in the in your office being like, okay, this is what a resource is. This is what a peaceful place experience is. And what are some ones that they've already done that work. So you've saved some time there. The other thing that I'll tell you is that if you do any of my coaching programs, I have a huge resource library of all the different tools I use, all the different ways that I structure things, all the different clinical tools that are helpful to me. I talk about them, and you get access to that in perpetuity for anything that I create, that I put in there. In interweaves, I use like IFS informed approaches, how I think about preverbal trauma, blah blah blah, on and on. The way I structure my time in terms of what I do with all this time is that 30-minute free consult to see if they're a good fit. I've talked about that before, how I do that. First paid component is the 90-minute intake, which is virtual. I introduce the workbook to them, go through it all, talk about, in the 30-minute intensive, we've already talked pricing, so they should be all, and they've decided whether they're going to do it or not. So that's not part of the intake call. In the intake, we talk through the workbook. We talk like, what's the main issue we're going to talk about in the intensive? What's bringing you here today, kind of thing. We talk about, some brief history, but I get a lot of it in the workbook. We talk about scheduling, like what the time is going to look like, anything logistical they need to know. They get the workbook back to me. I review it. I'm ready for day one. Day one, I would say we spend the first half, like up until lunchtime, going through the workbook, installing resources. And if we have time, we start with the kind of run the mental movie part of RTEP, sort of the first stage of creating this, like a little bit of the narrative that we're going to be working with. If that all moves quickly, we might even start the first point of disturbance, which is what you call a target in the recent protocols. At least that's what I learned to call them, before lunch. Sometimes the resourcing can take a lot longer. If you have someone who is more dissociative or more activated, you might spend a lot more time, like up until lunchtime, just going through the workbook and the prep work. If it's someone who's really, really dissociative, maybe it's even longer than that. Maybe you never get to phase 4, but that's a different topic. You can listen to my dissociation episodes on that. But usually after lunch on the first day, because I do a 5-hour intensive with a 1-hour break for lunch. So I do 2.5 break, 2.5. We're ready to start with the first target, point of disturbance. And so that's where we go. I usually find that people feel worse between days 1 and 2. That's very common. You've stirred up a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of work to do. I always try to tell people, like, that's normal. That's okay. Obviously, call me if you need to, if you're feeling really distressed. But like, here's some, like, in the workbook, part of what they get is like ways to take care of yourself between the intensive days. And then they come back, and then people usually start to see a really big positive shift between days 2 and 3, which is why I love the 3-day, because you get through a lot and really can like tie it up with a little bit of a bow on 3 days. 1 just feels like you don't quite get, you can get to, a lot of stuff has been stirred up, but not a lot has been resolved. Day 2, you're making really good progress. Day 3, it's just like, we really got a huge chunk of stuff done. If you don't finish all of the points of disturbance in the in RTEP, like all the different points that they want to hit on, I want you to know that's okay. You don't have to do that in 3 days. You get as far as you can. You notice how much generalizes, like targets that might have, or points of disturbance that might have felt really hard at the very beginning of processing. If you've processed some other stuff up until there, it might not have the same level of acuity, and so that's progress too. Certainly, if you feel like clients need a referral to another EMDR therapist after they finish with you, you do that. You're going to do a lot of follow-up and continuity of care stuff with their other providers. You're going to make sure that they're okay to return to life. It's okay if you don't finish every single bit of trauma, that's related to this particular theme in their entire lives. They're still going to, you're not promising that. They're still going to get a huge amount of return in that time. A couple of other things about time and structure is making sure that you leave enough time for a phase 7 at the end of each day, and certainly the last day, and time to re-engage, phase 8 at the beginning of days 2 and 3. So you're factoring that into the time. I try to leave a good 30 minutes each day. Maybe it's more like 20 after days 1 and 2, but 30 minutes definitely for the last day. If it's someone who's more dissociative, more complex, you're going to leave like at least 30 minutes. And then I would say 45 minutes on the last day. And just like, think about that luxury, right? How could you have 45 minutes on the last day to really have some real closure that feels really, really profound and significant, not just like, okay, let's do some breathing. You feel good? Okay, bye. Have a nice life. There's so much more than that. I talk about closure rituals a lot in other episodes too, but I think it's really important with an intensive to have some sort of closure ritual, a small gift, a little plant or a little journal, and then reminding them of how you're going to follow up and what the aftercare plan is, and processing the experience with them verbally. That really makes everything feel really complete and contained. Phase 8, re-engaging on each day, I would say make sure before, during the closure on the days before, you've talked about what are you going to do to care for yourself between sessions. I have a form in there where they can kind of keep track. It's a TICES log. Keep track of symptoms that come up in between, some journaling prompts. You're definitely going to want to give space to that at the beginning of each day when they come back. A good 30 minutes for that, 20, 30 minutes. And you'll know as you're going through that if you need to spend more time there, if the direction's shifting at all. But really leaving time for phases 7 and 8 is important too when you're factoring in how you're going to structure these 15 hours. And, I promise it's going to feel really liberating to work in this way. I mean, I guess I can't promise that's true for everyone because I don't know everyone. And there are some people for whom the intensive model of working might not be accessible or possible, of course. But if this is something that you want to do and you're interested in and it speaks to you, I think you will find that it is an energizing and liberating way to practice. It's energizing because you can get so deeply into the work, like that flow state. You see incredible results, and that's really energizing for me and real protective against burnout. It's liberating because you're not carrying this massive caseload anymore. You're not freaking out if you get sick and have to call 20 different people for the week to cancel and reschedule them all. It's liberating in that you have more time in your week to just breathe and have space and take care of yourself, take care of your other commitments and relationships. And it's liberating in that we're doing something different. It's not how we were told you're supposed to practice therapy, right? A lot of people still don't even know intensives exist, therapists included, EMDR therapists included, because I hear a lot, oh, the market's saturated. It is not. It is not. I think last week I talked about someone who's in DC and in my group, and she was struggling to find other EMDR intensive therapists. She was talking to EMDR therapists about them, and they're like, whoa, I want to do that. That's so cool. So the market is not saturated. You are not behind if you are not offering intensives yet. But there's no reason you shouldn't be jumping on the train now, because I think they're only going to grow in popularity and demand. So, do the work now so you can be reaping the rewards of that interest, the interest that people have. And there's interest for good reason. It's an incredible model to offer to people. And we want it to be something that lots of people can find someone to do it with. So if all this seems daunting, if you're like, wow, this is all great, but I need to, this is just little dribs and drabs of information, I want to know more. Well, the September cohort of my signature program, the EMDR Intensive, 12-week intensive, the waitlist is currently open. The waitlist sale will be August 5th and 6th. You can still get on the waitlist for those days. The link is in the show notes. So you'll get first access to those spots when they open up. The group caps at 8. I can't take any more than 8. EMDR rules, so you guys can get your hours for certification or towards becoming a consultant. So once those 8 spots fill, they are full. So yeah, I would love to join you, or have you join the group that we're going to have in September. And the group will finish before Thanksgiving. You could be offering your first intensive before the holiday season begins, and be looking ahead to January 2026 with a new practice model that is going to feel life-changing on so many levels. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to hear from lots of you jumping on that wait list. I can't wait to welcome an amazing new group. The group I have right now is incredible. They're doing incredible things, booking those $6,000 3-day intensives, which seemed unfathomable to them 2 months ago. So I want to see you joining that crew, because there's no reason you can't. It's so possible. And I want you to have that. Because life has changed my life. It's changed the lives of the clients that we all work with. And it's changed the lives of the therapists that I've worked with who have switched to intensives. It has made so much more possible for them, and has made it possible to live a life that's actually has some ease to it, which God knows we all truly need and deserve now more than ever. So take good care, everyone. I hope you have a great week and be well.